Okay, welcome to the e-commerce show with me, your host, Matt Edmondson, the Curiosity Podcast. I almost forgot what it was called then for a second. Mind blank. Never mind. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you along. In today's show, we have a very special guest, a digital marketing expert called Meyrick D'Souza. And Meyrick is going to be talking to us about the psychology of influence and how this is going to be a bit of a game changer for the world of e-commerce. That's right. And if you're new to the show, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Edmondson. We are now recording season 3 of the show. Can you believe it? It's been going on now for 3 seasons. We've got some great feedback from you guys. And one of the things that we do, you would have heard me talking about this in previous shows, but if you're new, maybe you haven't heard me talk about it yet. One of the things that we do is we broadcast live on Facebook as we're recording the interview. So tonight's interview with Meyrick is being broadcast live on Facebook. For those of you who are watching this on Facebook, hi, it's great to see you. Just give us a wave or a shout in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you. So if you are curious about these kind of interviews that we do, because we have some great guests on the show, then make sure you connect with us on Facebook and join us on the Facebook Lives, because as I interview the guests, you can ask your questions, you can join in the conversations, and they will be more than happy to jump on board and have conversations with you. So it's a great thing to do. Now, before we get into it, I do want to give a big shout out to the sponsors of the show, because without the show sponsors, there'd be no show. If that makes sense. I'm sure it does. The first sponsor is the Curious Digital e-commerce platform. It is the very e-commerce platform that I use myself, and they've got some great new features coming out. And one of the things that is just about to get launched, and it will probably be launched by the time you hear this, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast. If you're watching on Facebook Live, give us a few days. They're going to do a pay what you can model on their base subscription. So we are in the phrase everybody is using at the moment is unprecedented times. We are in unprecedented times. We are in the midst of the COVID lockdown here in the UK, and I know it's happening all over the world. And online digital business seems to be, in a lot of respects, thriving in the midst of mayhem and chaos. And so I know a lot of people are trying to jump online to build their e-commerce business. And Curious have decided that their core system, the base e-commerce system, will be run on a pay what you can model. So you don't have to pay the fixed subscription fee. If you can only afford $5 a month, then just pay $5 a month. If you can't afford anything, don't pay anything. Just tell us you can't. Just tell them you can't afford anything at this stage in time. Build your business, and as your sales grow, then have a think about it. Can't say any fairer than that, right? The second sponsor for today's show is Lightbulb, the Lightbulb agency who do end-to-end e-commerce services. They, in effect, take care of all those bits of e-commerce that you don't want to do, or you don't have the skills to do, or even the expertise. So whether that's marketing. I mean, I was having a conversation today with somebody and just running through the key aspects of e-commerce marketing, you know, from email to SEO and all that sort of stuff. And some of them, they were doing really well, but there were one or two, they were like, you know what, we need some help in that area. So I'm like, go talk to the Lightbulb guys. They'll help you in that area. They really will. They've got a great system for helping e-commerce businesses grow. So do check out Lightbulb Agency if you want to find some e-commerce services to help your business grow, whether it's marketing or fulfillment, whatever it is. Just go talk to them. They're good guys. They'll help you. And they're great sponsors, so thank you to them. Now, shall we crack on with today's show? So like I said to you before, my guest is called Meyrick D'Souza. He is a digital marketing professional, it says here in my notes, with over 20 years of international experience helping organizations build customer-focused digital engagement. I didn't even know digital was around 20 years ago, but there it is. Apparently he's been doing it for 20 years. I jest, people. He has worked both agency and client side. Experience ranges from Fortune 500 startups, so which is good because we have a whole bunch of people who watch this show who are startups, and we have a whole bunch of people who are, well, they're like Fortune 500 companies. We have such a wide sort of display of people watching. It's great. So Meyrick's going to help all of us, which is great. And he's skilled in helping organizations reimagine and transform their customer experience by understanding the opportunities and challenges that new technologies can have. it couldn't be a more apt, timely conversation. So I'm excited to have him on board. In the pre-call, it was great actually talking with Meyrick and talking about what we're going to talk about on the show, because he had a great idea about this whole psychology of influence. And rather than tell you about it now, I want to keep you waiting on. I'm going to bring Meyrick onto the screen. So let me click the button. Let me unmute you. Meyrick, thanks for joining us on the show. It's great to have you.
Hi, Matt. It's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Now, whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I'm in London.
Oh, okay. And we are in COVID times at the moment. How's the lockdown there?
It's working pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
I track it every day, actually.
Okay.
Like not just London numbers, but local numbers.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay, actually. This part of London isn't doing too badly, but worrying times.
Yeah. Yeah, unprecedented, I think, is the phrase that people use. You know, there's a lady who works in my office, Michelle, and she said to me, she said, you know what, if someone says to me one more time the word unprecedented, I'm going to slap him in the face. So it's very tempting just to go around going unprecedented, unprecedented. So anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Meyrick, it's like I said in the start of the show, you're a digital marketing guy, 20 years experience. What is that? What does that look like? How have you got from 20 years to now? A quick sort of run through.
Right. I mean, I've really fell into marketing. I hadn't really planned to do it, but my passion, I think, is really what drives human behavior, and that's been consistent because I started out doing CRM, so it's always been about data for me.
Okay, sorry, let me interrupt. For those that don't know what CRM is,
customer relationship management.
Okay. That's basically it's basically the software on computers that runs your database, isn't it? It's like
So it was right at the beginning. It was really how can technology begin to change the way that we do marketing and advertising. So for the first time, we were thinking about creating one view of the customer, and how do we drive more personalization, and what are the ways that we can be more scientific in our marketing efforts to be more relevant and optimize responses. So this goes back a long way, long before technology. But
that's an important thing to think about, actually, because we talk about a lot of these things now, like the customer journey and the personalization, like they're new things.
Yeah.
But it's this has been around for a while. People have been thinking about this for a while, haven't they? This is not just in the last few years, despite the rhetoric of some websites, I would hasten to add.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's always made me smile listening to experts in digital who maybe have been in it for 4 or 5 years, who definitely know their stuff, but they think it's all new.
Yeah. And
some of the ideas go back to the 1940s with book clubs and things like that, offer testing, A/B testing. All of that was being done a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just now we've got technology to do it at the speed of digital, basically.
Yeah.
And the ability to test multiple variables instantaneously using AI. It just obviously completely new ball game, and the ability to constantly experiment. It's just all kinds of new tools. It's a question of how do you think about it? I think what's missing though sometimes is that we miss the human element. We need to put back into it.
Yep.
And especially when we think about, what should I be testing? I think this is where some of the psychology needs to be thought about again.
Yeah, and this is where I can't wait to get into this conversation, because you're understanding the psychology of influence and what the impact is on e-commerce, I think is a great conversation to have. And you came up with a really unique idea when we had our pre-call. Do you want to tell folks what that was?
I'm sorry, remind me again, what was the idea?
Yeah, it was just to go. Well, it was just to go through the 6 lessons, wasn't it, from the very well-known book, the Robert Cialdini book?
Okay, right. So, Robert Cialdini. So this is one of my favorite books. I mean, it's not a new book. It's been around for quite a while, but I've always been interested and passionate about what what drives people's behavior. And so I was researching for information about influence and psychology, and this was the best example I could find. I mean, there are a number of good books out there, but this one called Influence, this Science and Practice, is based on Robert Cialdini's research, and it's the simplest explanation of 6 important shortcuts that we have, that people use to influence their behavior. So we'd like to believe that everyone gathers all the available information before they make a decision, but the sad fact is that there's just too much information out there, and so we use these shortcuts as ways to make decision making easier for us. And so there are 6 different shortcuts: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, and consensus. And you see these all the time now. I mean, I think about it in my everyday life. I find experiences where I can see someone using some of these triggers.
That's cool. And these are the 6 that we're going to talk about tonight, right? So we're going to go through each one of these in turn, and we're going to talk about what it is and how it applies to the world of e-commerce. And the first one, we were trying before we came on air to actually figure out how to say reciprocity, and it's not an easy word, is it? So if you're watching this, just whatever you're doing now, if you've got your headphones on, people might think you're nuts, but just say the word reciprocity, maybe in the correct way, and you'll understand the dilemma that we've had, right? So despite the fact that it's not an easy word to say for someone like me, what is it? What does it mean? And why did he start there, do you think?
Well, reciprocity, I can't even say it.
You got the same disease I've got.
You started it. It's contagious. Hey, it's contagious. No, it's simply the idea that when we receive a favor or a gift, we feel a social obligation to return the favor. Okay, so the researchers think that this behavior has come about because our ancestors learned to share food and resources and skills as a means to survive. They found that their collective survival improved. So we've become, we've created this culture of indebtedness and division of labor, and that's now become culturally ingrained. So we often feel a social obligation that when we receive something, that we feel we need to give something back, especially if what we received was never asked for. It was done with authenticity. So
it's about giving a gift, being authentic in it, but giving a gift that wasn't asked for. That was a key phrase you mentioned there, wasn't it? This is something that they didn't know was coming.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so they feel the need to return that favor.
Yeah. So I think it's important as well, just when we go through these, that there are examples out there that one might think is not being ethical, and I definitely want to push that when you try and use some of these triggers, to try and remember to be as ethical and as authentic as possible.
Sure. Yeah, we're not. There's a fine line, isn't there, between persuasion and manipulation, and you've got to know which side of the fence you're sat on, don't you? So. That's a very good point. Very, very well put. So let's talk about this reciprocity then, and how does that? So this is a gift that I've given you, or I've done a favor that I didn't ask for, and you feel a social obligation to return that favor. Have you got an example of where that just works generally in life?
Yeah,
it's an obvious one.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's obvious, but the one that I found quite recently was I just bought a new belt, and I wanted to have a couple of holes punched in it, more because I wanted. So I was just walking. I was doing my daily exercise, and I was walking by a leather shop, like a cobbler's, and I thought, oh, they may be able to punch a couple of holes. So I walked in and I asked the guy, can you help me? And he goes, yeah, sure, no problem. So I'd give him the belt and he punches 2 holes. And I go, okay, so how much was that? And he says to me, well, pay what you think it's worth. And I was like, now later on I thought, well, hold on a second. I could have just walked out and go, I don't, just not pay anything then.
Yeah.
But I gave him £1. And I thought, well, hey, later on I thought, well, hold on a second. I probably overpaid. But what he's given me is he's given me a gift, if you like, of trust. And I feel obliged now to honour it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not give him 10 pence. I felt obliged. I probably overpaid.
Yeah.
There are a lot of examples like this. I remember, you're a Liverpool fan, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So am I.
Oh, good. Well, I knew that was the reason I liked you.
So many years ago, I went to a charity event for the Liverpool Foundation.
Yeah.
And so Kenny Dalglish was there, Ian Rush was there. And they give you free food, they give you free drink. You get a chance to take a photograph with Rush and Dalglish. So there's all these freebies. So when the auction starts, you feel obliged to bid.
Yeah.
Right?
And bid well, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as the bid go, then momentum builds and the bid. So these are just sort of simple examples that I think, that you see all the time.
Yeah.
But I think, in e-commerce, when we do, blog outreach, right, the paradigm should be that, before you approach them to ask for something, you should give back, right?
Pay forward.
You like their content, you comment on it, maybe you share some of the content, but you do it authentically, right? You pick content that you find valuable and you give valuable feedback. So that builds a certain amount of rapport. And that'll encourage them maybe to share your content and share your website or your promotions. So before you ask, you give.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, from my own point of view, I get a lot of people every day contacting me saying, can I, post something on your blog, or do you know what I mean? Or can you do this for me? And they're asking for favors. And 99.9% of the time, I do not feel obliged to do anything other than say thanks, but no thanks. I don't even have to do that, but I mean, I do. I make a point of saying thanks, but no thanks. But you're right. If they change their tactics, and rather than saying, can you publish this on your blog? If they came to me and said, right, how can I help you? What can I? Do you know what I mean? And they give something first and have that mentality, I'm much more likely to sort of be involved with that. I tell you where I've seen this work really well. I don't know if this is a good example, but it's just sort of sprung to mind. Was the young lady I was mentioning to you earlier, a lady called Michelle. Okay, Michelle's been with me for years, right? And she's now the director of Jersey Beauty Company. So she's been with me for a really long time. She's amazing, an amazing person. Love the bones off her. She's fantastic. And when Michelle started, obviously we didn't know her. I had no idea who she was, and we were just a young startup business at the time. And she came to us to work as a bookkeeper,
right?
And she wanted to retrain. She'd never done bookkeeping her whole life. Just felt like she wanted to do accounts and bookkeeping. So came to us and said, "Well, can I do the accounts and bookkeeping role?" And do you know what? She didn't take a salary for the first 3 months. It was this whole, let me, I'm going to do this for you. And, here we are 12, 13 years later. She's now, she can't, the only job that she's not had yet is mine. And, do you know what I mean? She's now number 2 in the whole organization. And it all started because she gave before asking. Do you know what I mean? So the standard, here's my CV, give me my money and I'll come work for you. She's like, no, I'm going to come work for you. If this works, you'll give back, sort of thing. So, yeah, real fascinating story.
Well, I think at this particular period of time as well, with the lockdown, I think it's a great opportunity as well. But you're seeing a lot of online businesses give free training, things that were costly, they're giving away for free.
Yep.
And that's a good way to give back, if you like, and build that relationship.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
That will pay back in the longer term.
Yeah, totally agree. In fact, that's what Curious is doing with their pay what you can model. And I thought that was interesting because it ties in with your belt story. Because I know initially they had conversations about, do we just give the core platform away for free? My advice was, I don't think you should give it away for free. I think you should tell people to pay what they can, because I feel like people need to have skin in the game. And I think you'll get a lot less time wasters, because there's that favor involved, isn't there? There's that, like you with the belt, there's that you've given me something, you've actually trusted me now, so actually I'm actually going to be a good customer back at some point in the future when I make this work. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I like your point about skin in the game. That's always an important part of it. I mean, part of just, online business.
That's what the guy with the belt did to you, didn't he? He made, rather than saying, "Oh, don't worry about it," now you're vested by saying, "I'll pay what you think it's worth." You've now got your reputation is on the line at this point.
Yeah.
And he didn't know you from Adam, and if you'd have walked out, it wouldn't have changed anything, would it? But it was just, it's fascinating psychology behind it.
Well, right.
Sorry?
It's also about how you think about yourself.
Yeah.
I could walk away and never see him again, but I've got to live with myself.
Yeah.
I've got to look at myself in the mirror every day. And that's not who I think I am. And so I think he's used a good piece of psychology on me.
Yeah.
But you do question how authentic that is, because I think he knows I'm going to pay more than it's actually worth.
Yeah.
So you feel a little bit manipulated afterwards.
You could do, potentially, yeah. I tell you, I've seen massage therapists do this really well. Where you go to the airport and you say, how much is it for a massage? And they say, we'll give you a 10-minute massage, just pay what you think it's worth. And you'll pay them probably twice what they would have charged you. I think it's fascinating psychology. But this all comes down to this reciprocity idea, doesn't it? We're talking about this because this is idea number one.
Yeah.
When you receive a gift or favor, you feel a social obligation to return that favor. And so how would we do this, do you think, with customers? So I understand how I could do this with a blogger, but you're setting up an e-commerce business. What sort of things could you do with this idea of reciprocity to build your business, do you think?
So I think, giveaways. I mean, I think that, content can be something that you're giving to customers, right? So your time, your knowledge is also is a useful, not a commodity, but a useful resource to have. So what I find a good tactic is, if you've got a social media presence, then getting people to making people famous. For example, if they've connected with you and engage with you, then you give them thanks. You make them famous, right? That kind of thing can really help use that
reciprocity
to drive more sales.
That's a great tip. It's a great idea. Okay, so what is the second principle, the second lesson here?
So the second one is scarcity. All right, so that's an example where people tend to want more of those things that there's less abundance of.
And you see this a lot in e-commerce, don't you? You see this principle all the time.
Yes, indeed.
On websites you do. Hurry, last few remaining.
No, exactly. So again, when I'd mentioned that, this whole scheme has been around for decades. When I first started doing CRM, that's one of the things you're taught, right? So time limited offers. So, there's only so much time you've got, like a day or 24 hours, or there's only 20 of these available. There's a number of ways you can package it to try and create the feeling of scarcity. An example in the book, I think, was when British Airways was still flying Concorde to New York, and they announced that they were going to cease that route. The next day, the sales went through the roof. As soon as people knew that time was running out, that they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to take Concorde to New York, sales just, doubled. Even though they didn't change the price, nothing else had changed around the service, but it's just this idea of scarcity drives up sales.
Yeah, no, it's true, isn't it? And I think, and again, coming back to your point earlier, I just want to point out there is an element of integrity and authenticity to this, because I've seen this used a lot on websites like hurry, last one remaining. And you've got 1,000 of them in stock. Do you know what I mean? And you're just saying that to try and get people to buy it. And I think there has to be an integrity to this, because I think customers ultimately see through that kind of stuff and they stop trusting you. But if you're genuine and if you're authentic in the, hurry, last few remaining, people go, okay, cool. And they're more likely to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just small websites that do that. I mean, I would argue that companies like Apple do this. So Apple, there'll always be a leak about a new phone being launched.
Yeah.
And there's some debate whether that leak is genuine or whether Apple have done that deliberately, because it drives up anticipation about the product. And then when they launch the product, there's never enough available.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's a scarcity thing, isn't it?
It's a scarcity thing. So it drives up, you've built anticipation, and then, you're driving up demand because everyone wants one before they run out.
Yeah.
And everyone knows.
Knowing full well that they're not going to get one for a little while. It's clever. It's a clever idea. I've seen actually, and not just Apple, sorry? Just
to be clear, I used to work for Lenovo, so we were obviously in competition. So that's just my hot take, if you like.
Yeah, no, you can see it, right? And I remember, over the weekend, there's a website that I went on to called Alphalete. It's a website my son likes, and they do sports clothing, and they do really nice, really comfy sports clothing. Shout out to Alphalete; they make good products. But what they do is they do a launch of their products, and they tell you ahead of time the launch is happening. Hustle may do it. I've seen a lot of the sort of fitness brands do this, where they now launch a product, and once it's gone, it's gone. So it's not what we'd call an evergreen product. It's like, well, I've got 500 t-shirts. Once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not getting them reprinted. And it puts this element of scarcity around it. So if I own it, I own one of 500 rather than one of an unlimited number, right? Whenever you buy a t-shirt from, I don't know, H&M or wherever, you don't think, oh, this is a limited option. You just think it's a t-shirt. And so they're using this launch, this scarcity idea like that. And I've seen that work very, very well in e-commerce. And actually, as a way to launch a product, it's not a bad idea, especially if you can get that demand like Apple, get that anticipation and just build it up and say, once they're gone, they're gone. It's a clever way of doing it.
Right. I mean, I think that you can have like collectible versions. I think that's something that a lot of companies do really well. They'll have limited edition versions of a product. So people can buy it, and if they can't buy that limited version, they'll buy one of your normal products.
Sure.
So you'll see a halo effect on your other products as well.
Yeah.
So, and obviously having a limited edition, if you've done it in a genuine way, it can have a genuine effect on the rest of your business.
Yeah, totally. No, it's an interesting idea. Okay, so that is scarcity. Have you got any more examples there, or should we move on to the next one?
Well, the last example I had was, again, something we used to do when I was at Lenovo, and that was like part of our relationship building with some of our advocates. So we give them access to people behind the scenes, things that normally you wouldn't get access to, right? And that was a good way of building sort of relationship. Yeah, I mean, access to events that we were driving, or just access to product designers, the merchandise people. We'd obviously get good feedback. They got the benefit because it made them more of an authority, therefore built their personal brand.
Sure.
But that's kind of scarcity value being used, if you like, to kind of drive more business.
Yeah.
Or drive your marketing.
That's interesting. Okay. So what's the third one?
Third one is authority. So
I'm sorry, I'm smiling. If you're listening to the podcast, you'll not realise that I'm smiling at the fact I've just told you. But I'm smiling because I think this is where everybody goes to straight away, don't they?
Oh, right, yes.
Or at least in their heads.
Yes.
This is where they go to. So sorry I interrupted you. You crack on.
No. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the difficulty with this, I suppose, is we all want to create, thought leadership content, but in fact, there's a deluge of content. So actually, creating content that's genuinely unique is difficult. And I think that was the point you made earlier about, things that only you would know, things that really come from you personally, from your personal experience. I think is really valuable. But the authority thing is something that's really hardwired into us. I mean, we know well that people in uniforms just trigger natural behaviours in us that we don't really sort of think about.
They do. I still stand up straight when I see a policeman. Bizarre.
Yeah.
I do this. I don't know. I just notice myself going, oh, I just stand up straight.
Yeah. I mean, there's worrying, although amusing, incident in the book where this participant's invited to what he thinks is an experiment to look at memory and the effect of punishment on our ability to memorize things. So he rocks up and he's introduced to this man in a white suit, in a white coat, and another person he thinks is a participant, but actually is an actor. And he's told the experiment is basically that you're given a list of pairs of words that you need to memorize. And if you get anything wrong, you get an electric shock.
Oh.
Then he's told that he is the person applying the electric shock, and the other person is the person who's the learner. And of course, there's no electric shock, but the actor just pretends to be electrocuted. And there's like 30 different volts or 30 different grades of voltage that he has. And each time that the person gets it wrong, then the researcher tells him to give him another electric shock of increasing voltage. And of course, it gets quite excruciating because the person supposed to be being electrocuted is like crying out for help. But 2/3 of the time, the participant finishes the experiment. In other words, goes through all through
doesn't stop.
Levels. And that's just purely on the authority of the person giving the instructions.
Because the guy was in a white coat, you assumed he knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
And the reality was you should have stopped sooner, but you kept going because there was someone else. I remember reading that story and going, oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness, what are we? Jeez.
So authority is a very it's a very important trigger, and that's really where influencer marketing, I think, does come in. So if you don't feel ready to leverage your own authority and content, then borrow other people's. Right, so that's really where you can find good influencers and get them to share your story.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously,
that's a good point. So if you've not got the authority level yourself, find someone who has that's willing to work with you, piggyback their authority, to get going, and actually that brings your credibility up as well, right? Brings your own authority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, just talk about your own years of experience, courses you've done, people things that you've achieved. All of those things don't sound important, but actually subliminally creates that authority message.
Credibility.
Credibility, yeah. But reviews and ratings as well. I mean,
I was just about to say that. It sounds very good segue into something like a review or rating from a customer, because actually it's not me saying how great I am, it's the customer saying how great you are is going to carry more weight, which is what happens in a review, isn't it, or a testimony?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially if you can get a rating review from somebody who has credibility, then that really helps. But the most difficult thing, I think, is building your own authority, right? And that you can only do over time.
Do you think it is a time thing? Do you think there's a sort of a time serve factor to authority?
I think you get better at it. I think the longer you do things, the more likely you're going to find insights that are valuable to share.
Yeah.
But I think you need to reframe what you think of as useful. I think it's important to think, what are the things that you uniquely know and can bring? And some of that's going to be your data. So what are the things that you can do on your website, experiments that you can do that would be helpful for others? So I've noticed people, they'll see something happen in the Google search algorithm, for example, and they'll immediately alert people going, what do you think? Is this what I'm seeing? Are you seeing the same thing? That kind of thing helps build your authority as well. Yeah.
No, it's great. Great example of that, actually. We're working on a project at the moment with a lovely lady called Joanne Jewett. And Joanne, she's from the Northeast. She has that sort of Northeast accent and approach to life, which is very matter of fact, and she's straight talking. Love the bones off her. She's a great lady, Joe. And if you're watching this, Joe, hi, or you're listening, Joe, hi. Super excited to be working with her. We're doing a project which is hopefully going to get launched in the next few weeks. The website's like 90% done. The guys have been working super hard on it. And she is selling skincare and makeup, online. Now, I sell skincare and makeup online. I know how complex it is, and I know how competitive it is. And so how does she do it differently, right? How does she create a website that is different from every other website out there selling makeup and skincare?
Right.
Well, actually, the marketing aspect of it is going to be around her and not just the products. So in effect, what she's done, which I think is quite clever, is she's gone and curated the best products for her clients, because her clients trust her and she has that authority and that credibility. And for those of the clients that don't know her, she'll quickly build that authority and credibility, because she'll tell you stories about how when she did makeup for Princess Diana. Right. So all of a sudden, everything changes. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you did Princess Diana. Oh, you've done Bette Midler. Oh, you've done Barbara Streisand. And she can just throw all these names into conversations, right? And so she's aiming this website at women in their sort of 50s, in their 60s, helping them to sort of rethink their makeup, right? Because apparently makeup in your 50s and 60s is not the same as it was 20 years ago, and you have to rethink it, right? So I'm the last person to tell that story. I have no authority in that area whatsoever. But you know what she does, and with the clients that she's had and the referrals that she had, people listen to her and go, okay, I can now understand what you're saying. And so she's very much playing on her authority in that space to build her business. I think it's quite clever. But it's coming back to this statement you said, she has something unique to say.
Yeah.
It's not the same as everybody else.
So that's an interesting example, though, because obviously one of the recent phenomena is the online influencer, especially in makeup, doing videos, giving lessons.
Yep.
But it comes back to my earlier point about time. I mean, I think one of the interesting things is, when people begin that journey, they don't know anything. And so they're actually sharing their learning journey.
Yeah.
And they're sharing things they've learned along the way, even if it's something that they've been told, they reshare that.
Yeah.
And building trust and authenticity with their followers. So that's where I think you can build authority over time.
Yeah.
It can be about sharing your journey as well.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of that happening now on places like TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so podcasting now is also something that's, it's already huge, and it's just growing.
Yeah.
But it's also about finding your niche.
Yeah.
I suppose other thing about authority, it's what niche are you an authority in,
mm-hmm.
and how do you define that well enough?
Yeah, and my experience is 99.9% of people can be an authority in a specific type of niche.
Exactly. Yeah, don't try and be all things to all people.
Exactly, and actually, a lot of people say all the time, "Well, I'm not an expert in anything," and actually, it's not true. When you dig down and just ask a few questions, actually, you can very easily go, "Oh no, you're a bit of an expert in this area, aren't you?" And you've done well in this area of life. Whether, do you know what I mean? Like my wife would say, "I'm not an expert in that kind of stuff." I'm like, "Babe, we've got three of the most amazing kids in the world. You're an expert in being a parent. Let's start there, right?" After
Absolutely.
22 years of marriage, I'm still, madly in love with you. You're an expert at being a wife. Let's start there. And then actually, when we talk further, you can teach people how to speak English. And so there's all this stuff that starts to come out that actually she's quite expert in, but it's hard to see sometimes your own level of expertise because we think often we're not good enough, or do you know what I mean? We don't have that sort of ability to especially if you're British, I find. If you're American,
right.
This is no disrespect to my American cousins, having lived in the States for a number of years. In the States, you kind of I think you come out of the womb going, "I'm brilliant. I'm an expert at something," right? You're British, you kind of come out the womb going, where's the nearest queue for me to go and stand in, right?
Well, yeah, I think we suffer from the tallest poppy syndrome here sometimes. We can be a little bit shy to talk about ourselves too highly, and I think also we take too much for granted, and we compare ourselves to other people, and we always come out badly when we do that. I think it comes back to context.
Yeah,
when you really look at your context to help you define a niche, then that's when things begin to pop, if you like.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I like that. Okay. Principle number, let me just give a recap. So number 1, we've got reciprocity, which is about the gifts and the favor. Number 2 was about scarcity. So, basically people want more of something that they can't have. And then authority. So people follow the lead of credible, knowledgeable experts. So what's number 4? What's the next one?
So number 4 is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where people like to be consistent with things they've done or said in the past, right?
Yeah.
So, example from the book, okay, and this isn't necessarily a very ethical practice, but the example was from toy stores. So toy stores, obviously their sales peak at Christmas.
Sure.
And then they have a massive lull in January, February. So their problem is, how do they increase their sales in that dead period? So what they do, it's actually a tactic that incorporates a number of these triggers. So what they do is they do a massive advertising campaign just before Christmas, say for a new racing game that gets the kids all excited. And of course, their kids then go to the parents saying, "Please, can you buy me that for Christmas?" So they then go to the store to buy it. And of course, using the scarcity principle, they've sold out.
Sure.
Right? So then they buy something else of equal value to make up for the fact they couldn't buy this race set. Mm-hmm. Come January, they rerun those ads. So now the kid's going, "But you promised." So the parent they've made the promise. They've got to be consistent with what they've said. Right. So they go back to buy the race car, to buy the race car set.
Yeah.
Right. So not a very ethical way of doing things, but that was, I thought that was
it's interesting.
a good example. But for me, I think it's something that it's always been part of what we've done. Right. If you get somebody to respond to you to an email, they're more likely to go on to purchase. So on social media, if they've endorsed you in any way, whether they've liked you, commented or shared your content, then remarket to them, because surely they're more likely to then purchase than somebody who you're targeting cold. Right? So one tactic, for example, that I've used is before a product launch, you build a lot of anticipation, you get people to like content that you publish, and then you use that to retarget, and you'll find that your response rates increase. Because you can see it as consistency. You can also see that people are like, raising their hand to say, I'm likely to be in the market for that product.
Yeah.
But that kind of consistency, I think, is just a trigger that works. I mean, even the example I gave earlier with the belt, I need to be consistent with who I am as well, how I see myself. So anything that happens in public, I will tend to want to be consistent with.
Yeah. So people like to be consistent with things they've already done, and I'm just thinking this through a little bit more. This is why Facebook ads are potentially, once you get your head around them, a bit of a goldmine, because you can find people that have done similar actions to what you need them to do to get your stuff or to like your product, can't you? You can go and find those interests, those people with that value set. Right,
exactly. So, that can be looked at as finding people with affinity for your product, but, that could be a very passive affinity.
Yeah.
Once you've actually done something in public, then you're more likely to follow through.
Yeah.
So one of the examples as well is running apps that make you publish what your goal is.
They're very popular at the moment. I see them a lot on the Facebook feed from my friends. All doing the couch to 5K or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that is psychology of what motivates us, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. It is a very good point. There's also, one of the things that I've always, this is what the idea that's popped into my head as you're talking. One of the things that I've always said to clients, and I think that, people should do on their websites, is publish their value statement. In other words, as a company, these are our values. This is what we stand for. And so this is what we won't do. It's understanding those values and why you have them, because people like to connect with people of similar values. It's very rare to connect well with people that don't have the same sort of value set as you. You can do it. You joked about being a Liverpool Football Club fan, and I am friends with people that support, say, Manchester United. But I think as a general whole, I'm more likely to be friends with or have deeper friendships with people who like Liverpool Football Club, for instance. Do you see what I mean? So it's that value set. So actually, I think, and coming back down to the niche idea and niching your market down, so you take someone like Jo Jewett, she has a very unique set of values. She is very, very anti the way the beauty industry markets beauty products, and she's very vocal about that, and these are her values about it. And you either like that or you don't. It's quite a polarizing thing. But the people that like it, there's going to be the consistent message with what they perceive to be valuable. It's that consistency, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I think that might also link to one of the next triggers, which is liking.
Okay.
You tend to you tend to be influenced by people that you like, who are similar to you. But if you are engaged with people with the similar values to you, and you get them to say something that endorses your point of view, then they're more likely to act based on that belief,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
reinforce that
Yeah.
purchasing a product.
And then you remarket to those people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So asking people to share like your content, to comment, and to endorse you.
Mm. That's a really good point. And it's one of the things which I find fascinating, and I have no hard and fast data for this, Meyrick, but I have a sort of a feeling, and I've not looked at like I say, I've not looked at the data, but it is a hypothesis that I have, and that is if a customer purchases from you, and you contact that customer and say, "Would you please write a review?"
Mm-hmm.
And they write a review of the product on your website, or they write a review of you as a company, which you publish on the website, they are much more likely to buy from you again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
So as well as it being good just to have reviews on my website, the folks that write the reviews tend to be your best customers overall. They tend to be the people which come back time and time again, which and it is this kind of asking them to post on social media, like you say. It's this asking them, write me a review kind of thing. They feel like, yeah, it does work. It's anecdotal. I have no science behind what I've just said, other than I see what I see at Jersey.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think definitely I've used that tactic where we've marketed to people who've just recently bought the product. Obviously, you're using that as a reason to write to them, and you're checking in to make sure they're happy, and then give it 6 months or 3 months and ask them to do a review, and then you publish that review. And in some ways, that's also giving back to them because you're making them famous and increasing their personal brand. But you're right; they're more likely then to repurchase. But the key thing is the more times you are able to engage with people online and offline, any kind of activity that's public that shows some kind of endorsement is useful to drive people closer to that point of purchase.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Yeah. So capturing that data is really, really important, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go and check now. Well, not now, but that'd be one of the things I go and find out. So that's number 4. What's number 5?
All right, number 5. Well, it's liking. It's
I didn't go. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. People prefer to say yes to those people that they like, and there are three important factors: that they're similar to us, people who pay us compliments, and people who cooperate with us to achieve a shared outcome. So those are ways to think about.
Sorry, I'm just processing those 3 things. So people who are similar to us,
right?
People that pay us compliments, and people that cooperate with us.
Who collaborate with us, or cooperate with us to achieve a shared outcome.
Okay.
So if you think about movements for, well, I mean, your friend who in the beauty industry. To change the industry, then
sorry, Meyrick, you froze. I heard think about your friend in the beauty industry, and then it just froze for about 10 seconds, and then you're back. Yeah, you're back now. Back on it.
All right. No, so if there's a community of people that have the same belief, and you're all trying to change the industry, then you've got a shared outcome that you're trying to achieve.
That's a very good point, actually. And you're working on this together, aren't you? It's a collaborative thing in some respects. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
The example in the book goes back a ways. I'm not sure people will even know what Tupperware parties were.
You know what? The sad thing is, I know exactly what you're talking about. Never run one, never done one my whole life, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But the idea is very simple, right? So instead of a door-to-door salesperson coming in and trying to sell to you directly, they get somebody to invite their friends round and they have a bit of a party. And so now you're not buying from the salesperson, you're buying from your friend.
That's a very different kettle of fish, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a number of these triggers happening here because you've got the liking aspect, you've got the you've got the well, I think it's the next one, the social proof, because all of you are buying, so it creates momentum. You've got the consistency because they'll ask you first, what products have you bought and do you like them or not? And you've got reciprocity because you get little gifts. So I guess it's like, how can you use some of these tactics online, right? Can you sort of can you kind of maybe do a private online event that you invite people to, but you get a customer to invite their friends, and then that customer gets a cut of the profits, and so you make it more that they're the one doing the selling for you.
That's really interesting because you've put language to something that I'll tell you about a feature on the Curious Digital platform, because I think this fits it, and it's a really interesting idea that we've been playing around with for a little while. So you have your standard affiliate marketing schemes, right? Which is, I have the beauty website. You sign up, you get a code, you refer the code to, your blogging audience. You're an influencer. They click the code, they buy, and you get a percentage cut. Or you do a YouTube video, and they, and you're quite clear it's an affiliate link. Click it, and you're supporting this channel or whatever. And, okay, no problem. And that's actually that reciprocity thing again, isn't it? Use my affiliate link and help support this channel. I've done you a favor giving this content. If you're going to buy this product, click that link. It doesn't cost you any more, but it supports what we're doing. And so we've been playing around with this whole idea of affiliates plus. And until I think of a better name for it, that's what it's going to be called. But it's this belief that actually you want to go back to, or people want to go back to, the Tupperware party idea. It was like, how do you make Tupperware? How would you do that in the modern world, right? How would you do the Tupperware party? Well, you would go around to your friend's house. You would take with you some samples of the Tupperware, and then you would hand out your iPad, and everybody would order, and then it would all be delivered to their house. So you've not got to carry a load of stock. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
It's just like, put your order through here. And then whenever they go back to that website to buy some more Tupperware, you would get a commission again. And in fact, you'd be able to see reports, who's purchased, who hasn't purchased recently. You'd be able to email them through the system to go, hey, you've not purchased recently, here's an offer. So they become the people marketing because it's their business. It's not just an affiliate scheme anymore. You're giving them a chance to build their business amongst their friends. And as long as you've got a really good product and there's integrity and coming back to this authenticity thing, I think it's a really fascinating idea. And so with the KD platform, that's now built into it. So if a brand wants to allow that feature, they can do that where, your friends are now starting to sell to friends again. In the school playground, you can do it with your mobile phone.
Nice.
There it is.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so, I mean, normal affiliate, you don't necessarily have a relationship necessarily with the platform that you're clicking through from, right? I mean, what I've noticed, for example, on YouTube, is a lot of YouTubers now are like you just did with the pod, with your sponsor, are monetizing their YouTube channel through these kind of sponsorships.
Yep.
Because YouTube now are kind of seem to be demonetizing a lot of creators.
Yeah, they've changed their rules, haven't they?
Yeah, and so they've altered their monetization model, where they have these sponsors for products that they generally endorse, and talk about why they fit in with their own personal values, and then obviously they're asking people to support them by buying their products.
What's really interesting, actually, just following on from that with YouTube, because YouTube changed the way they did it. What a lot of people did. So I'm just thinking, I'm talking to a camera, right? I'm talking to you, but I'm talking through a camera. And cameras was a great one. When I was researching the camera, there's a lot of people on YouTube saying this is, the best camera to do, digital Zoom or Skype or webcam and all that sort of stuff. And you click their affiliate link. So YouTube wasn't paying them necessarily anymore for the views. So what they did was they set up an affiliate link with, say, Amazon. You'd click through to Amazon, you'd order the camera, and then they'd take a few percentage points. What people are finding now, which I find absolutely fascinating, and this has no relevance other than I just find it is interesting, because Amazon are no longer shipping products unless they're essential products. That whole side of things seems to be collapsing. So a lot of the YouTubers that were getting their income from the affiliate schemes with Amazon,
right,
because of COVID-19, that's all shut down or is shutting down. And the YouTubers are no longer getting the income from the affiliates because Amazon aren't doing those purchases. And I find that absolutely, fascinating. So they've spent all this time building this authority and this brand recognition and getting out there. And this is now the second channel from YouTube, which seems to have closed down to them. So I'm curious to see where the YouTubers take it now.
Yep, that's going to be interesting. And also, once this whole thing changes, once the lockdown lifts, how the whole ecosystem will change. I mean, whether new business models will start. We'll start to see new ways of monetizing as well. Because
I think we'll have to. I genuinely think we'll have to, and I think it's good. I genuinely think it's good. As much as I like Amazon, I think they're just too big, and I think they're just too unruly, and I think they have too much control, and a lot of people's livelihoods are, at a flick of a switch, they just change everything, and it is the way it is. And it's not a blame game, because Amazon's got to protect their own business. They've got to do what they've got to do. But it's the little guy at the end that always gets squeezed. And so I think people have always been reticent to say, well, I'll sell these on my own website. Do you know what I mean? But it's that's the only thing you can really control. So I wonder if we'll see a big another word I can't say.
Proliferation.
Yeah. A big increase in that kind of activity where people go, I'm going to build the channel. I'm going to monetize it by getting people to buy from me rather than to buy from Amazon or from a third party, because I can control that. I have say over that. It's a bit more faff and a bit more hassle, but I think it'll be interesting.
But just what you were saying earlier on, the first example you gave, I think just having your brand values, that is really important, especially if it's more personal. Because I think when we start talking about your company values, people can be quite cynical about it. So you've got to come across as really authentic.
You have. Totally.
But I think it's a very, very important point. I think that's one thing that when you start doing YouTube or podcasting, your values come through.
You can't hide them, can you?
Exactly.
You genuinely
and
can't.
People will relate to that. So, it does really help leverage the liking trigger.
No, you're right. And I think I'm just thinking now, I was watching a few videos on YouTube earlier on. I'm going to redo my workshop. My hobby is woodwork. And I really like just doing something creative with my hands rather than just staring at a digital screen on the weekends. And I was watching some videos earlier of some guys who were showing how certain products worked. And rather than linking to Amazon, they link through to just an ordinary, there's a guy in Birmingham making benchdogs.co.uk. I don't know where they're based actually, but they referred me to his website. His website wasn't, no offense to Benchdogs, his website's not brilliant. But you know what? I was like, I'm totally buying from these guys because one, I love the product. Two, I thought the video was fantastic. The guy doing the video was totally authentic. Wasn't trying to be something that he wasn't, just really authentic, and said, listen, I found this company that makes these things. They're amazing, and let me tell you why, ... Did this video, and I am much more likely. I've never clicked an Amazon link from a YouTuber because I have this thing, I don't want to buy from Amazon, but I'm much more likely to buy from a smaller website that's, with these really interesting videos that have been put on YouTube, and I go to those websites and go, I'll buy that. That's amazing. That's I think is for me is much more appealing because I think that kind of ties in with my brand values. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. Interesting
point though. if you're saying at the beginning that some of the followers might come from bigger brands, and if you're a bigger brand, you've got a bigger issue of how do you humanize your brand. If you're a smaller company, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that we were talking about a lot when I was doing social media at Lenovo was, using content to humanize a brand, showing real people who are behind the activities.
Yeah.
And tools like YouTube and Facebook and TikTok can help you do that.
Yeah.
Showing behind the scenes, but bringing the brand to life, bringing the brand values to life, and demonstrating rather than just saying.
Yeah.
It's easy to write on a website what your values are, but when you can demonstrate it, then it's more authentic.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. You know what? I feel like we could go down this rabbit hole for much longer, but let's move on to point number 6.
Okay.
Before
so the last
midnight.
one. Yeah, the last one is consensus or social proof. So in this world where we're so busy, we tend to look at the actions and behaviors of others to determine our own behaviors. Sometimes it's because we don't want to be left behind. We don't want to be the odd one out. But a lot of the examples I've already given, are examples of this. So the example that I had with the charity, when one person starts bidding, it builds up momentum. We all start doing it. In advertising, we've used this for ages. We'll always, advertisers have always said this is the fastest selling product. But online, we do see this a lot, especially in travel. So if I go to booking.com, for example, you're looking at a hotel and it'll say, 10 people are looking at this hotel right now.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
If I've connected my Facebook profile, it'll tell me how many of my friends have stayed at the same hotel, right? So that kind of social proof is very useful. So Amazon, I know you hate them, but Amazon,
Hate's a strong word. I just don't shop there.
Sorry,
if I can help it.
But Amazon are brilliant at this. They'll talk about products. People who bought this product have also bought, but not just how many of your friends have bought this product, but ratings and reviews as well. Obviously, I think are an example of social proof. But there's lots of different ways that we use social proof along with other of these triggers and combine them to drive more business.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And it's like we always say to clients, you've got to have at least 5 reviews per product. So, if you're selling something online, get at least 5 reviews because it's that social proof aspect of it.
Yeah.
In fact, people are more likely to buy a product that's got negative reviews than no reviews, which is quite fascinating because they can they'll look at it and go, well, there's a negative review, but that's not the reason why I'm getting it, so therefore I'll still buy it. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Really
sometimes you look at a negative review though and go, right, that person's just an angry person.
Most of the time, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm not going
These
to.
guys have got some kind of vendetta against the world, right? So you're just like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found fascinating, and I can't remember if it was when I read Robert's book or another book about the psychology of influence, and this whole idea of consensus and social proof, was this idea that the example that was given to me was Kitty Gervais. I think I pronounced her surname wrong, but this was a lady in the 1960s who was murdered on the streets of New York. And there was about 30 people that saw her being chased but didn't do anything. And they ran basically the paper said New York was the unfriendliest city in the world, or some other most uncaring city in the world. And some psychologists went, I'm not convinced it's a result of people not caring. And it came down to a number of key incidents, one of which was social proof, i.e. everybody saw her running through the streets, but they were looking to everybody else to see what to do and how to behave. So when I used to work I used to volunteer with the British Red Cross, and we used to go out and do first aid and emergency first aid. I used to go out on the ambulances. It was great fun. It was a bit of an adrenaline rush. It was great fun, not going to lie. And I remember the first time I really saw this to a massive effect was I wasn't even on duty, actually. I was just driving down a road, and just in front of me, like a minute before I arrived on scene, there was a big, massive car crash involving like 3 or 4 cars. So I was the first on scene, get out of the car, and I go around each car, find out what's going on, see what's happening. And there's a crowd of about 30 people now sort of gathering around, standing and watching. But no one was doing anything. And because I'd read this book, because I understood this principle inside my head, what I had to do was I had to go to different people and say, I need you to do this. And as soon as I said to somebody, I want you to do this, they went and did it. But because they didn't know what to do, so therefore they were looking around at everybody else for this whole social proof, no one did anything. Do you know what I mean? And it's not because people didn't care, or I think people were just afraid to do the wrong thing sometimes. And so you see this a lot in emergency first aid, where if social proof is missing, i.e. if everybody's standing there watching you. So if you choke in a restaurant, for example, or you're having a heart attack or whatever, don't shout help. You point to somebody and say, please, you need to help me. Because if you're in a group of people, they look around and they tend not. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a really fascinating experiment that occurred. This whole thing of social proof, that people look to other people to understand how to behave themselves.
So I think the kind of opposite of social proof, if you like, is shaming. I think shaming is basically where we are singled out and excluded from the group.
Okay.
Right? And that, if you think of our ancestors, that could mean life and death. Mm-hmm. I think we have a deep fear of being shamed. And therefore we're looking for consensus before we decide what our actions should be. Mm-hmm. Because if we do the wrong thing, especially for something that really matters, we are at risk of being shamed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fear barrier that stops us acting. So I think that's
really
where,
interesting. Yeah.
That's maybe where some of the social proof comes in. So if you can remove that fear of being shamed for people and build that consensus and momentum, then you can help build your business, right?
That's really fascinating. Yeah. No, I get that. I totally get that.
One of the things about this as well, about these 6 triggers, is that it doesn't just work in terms of driving sales with your audience. It can also apply to your business. If you're a medium-sized business or a big business, one of the new things as well is employee engagement. Right, so that's part of your marketing activities, is using your employees to actually be the face of your brand and help to amplify your marketing content. So some of these triggers can also be used in terms of driving employee behavior.
Yeah.
If you reapply it.
Right? That's very good. Yeah, use it on your teams.
Yeah.
Or with your teams. On your teams is wrong.
Yeah.
That sounds wrong. But use it with your teams. Yeah.
With teams, yeah.
So, no, that's great. Hey, Meyrick, listen, I really appreciate your time going through this. It's been a fascinating conversation. And just thinking again about the because it's so easy to get caught up in tactics, and it's so easy to get caught up in the latest thing, that people are talking about, especially in the digital world. Yeah. Just taking a step back and thinking about the fundamentals, like the psychology of persuasion, is so, so good. I've written them down, a whole bunch of ideas that I've got for my own business, which is great. So really appreciate your time coming here. Let me just summarize them one more time. So lesson number 1, reciprocity. Lesson number 2 is scarcity. Number 3 was authority. Number 4 was consistency. Number 5 was liking. And number 6 is this whole idea of consensus and social proof. 6 key factors. People can obviously find out more by reading the book, which I would encourage you to do. It should be on everybody's bookshelf. I've read it many times. Very helpful book. But Meyrick, listen, thanks for bringing that to us. How can people connect with you, get a hold of you, reach you if you want, if they are so inclined?
So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at metric_DOS, METRIC_DOS. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Meyrick, Meyrick D'Souza, D'Souza. There's not many of us out there, so you should find me quite easily.
Now, we were talking about the root of your name, weren't we, before we came on, because it's such an unusual name. And so I can't imagine there are actually that many of you, which is great. Please explain to me metric_DOS for your Twitter handle.
I'm not very imaginative sometimes, and it was on Word, it was just the autocorrect. Every time I typed my name in, it came up with metric DOS. So I thought, okay, that'll do.
Wow, that's the best answer I've heard for a Twitter handle. Microsoft Word autocorrect gave it to me.
I thought, word of God. Hey, I can't disobey Bill Gates, can I?
No, you can't. Not at all. But that was brilliant. Meyrick, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure and a treat for me to chat to you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
I hope the listeners, I'm sure they have got a lot of stuff out of it. And if you've got any questions for Meyrick, do reach out to him on LinkedIn or Twitter. And you'll remember his Twitter handle now. He's told you that story. But Meyrick, thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, wasn't Meyrick fantastic? I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. Like I said, I've taken a whole shed load of notes on what I can do better on my website. Just a few ideas now buzzing around in my head on what we can do to drive our own e-commerce businesses for you. Do reach out to Meyrick, because Meyrick was a cool guy and had some real interesting wisdom there, and I'm sure he'd love to connect with you. But it's all that's left for me to say is thanks for watching. If you are still with us on Facebook Live, I know a few of you are. Thanks for listening. If you're listening on the audio podcast, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. We're on iTunes and Stitcher and all of those amazing places. And like I say, if you're interested, come join us on Facebook Live. Just make sure you like the Matt Edmondson Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Matt Edmondson CO. That's CO as in company, not CEO. But Matt Edmondson CEO. Or just head on to the website mattedmondson.com. And on there, we will, when we put the podcast live, we will put all the show notes. We will link to Meyrick. We'll link to the book that he's been talking through. Everything will be on the website at mattedmondson.com. You will be able to get all your resources from that site. It'll be great to see you there, and we'll link to the Facebook Live page from there as well. So if you want to come join in the conversation on Facebook Live, you would be more than welcome to do so. All that's left for me to say is, like I say, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Have a great week wherever you are, and I will be back again very, very soon with another episode of the Curiosity Podcast. Stay safe, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.